The offer. He stood in the terminal and realized he did not know why he had come. Crowds flowed around him in practiced currents. Departures, arrivals, voices merging into a constant murmur. A child laughed somewhere. A vendor called out prices. None of it reached him. He stared down at the floor markings. Blue arrows, yellow lines, direction, purpose. He had neither. A week ago, he had sat beside a hospital bed and watched a heart monitor fall silent. Yesterday, he had stood before a stone bearing his wife's name, while strangers told him she had been well loved. A year before that, a naval officer had stood at his door and told him his only son had died beyond the gates in expeditionary service. 3 rooms, 3 conversations, 3 endings. Now there was only an apartment with 2 chairs, one still warm in memory, one cold in reality. He had not decided to come to the terminal. His feet had simply carried him out the door. His hand closed around the identification card in his coat pocket. Proof he still existed. Habit more than intention. He felt almost betrayed that his body continued, that his heart still beat, that breath still came. He did not want to die. He simply did not know how to live. Then a voice interrupted. "Sir." He turned. 2 officers in Terran Republic Navy uniforms stood before him. Not recruiters, not advertisements. Real rank, real presence. One held a tablet. "Are you this individual?" the officer asked. His photograph stared back at him. Older, hollow-eyed. A man shaped by absence. He nodded once and handed over his identification. The motion was automatic. The officer scanned it, then returned the card. "You were contacted regarding the late service integration program," the officer said. "We visited your residence to follow up. We saw you depart and caught up to you here." He searched his memory. A letter. A message read without being absorbed. "Yes," he said quietly. "Then we will speak plainly," the second officer said. They stepped slightly aside from the flow of travelers. Not private, just contained. "You previously served in Naval Special Warfare Group," the officer continued. "You hold multidisciplinary engineering credentials. You have no dependents and no civilian contractual obligations. No family, no anchors. The Republic Navy is offering you return to service," the officer said. "Interstellar fleet duty. Rank and assignment will be determined following integration training and evaluation." He looked at them without reaction. The tablet turned toward him. "Medical rejuvenation treatment," the officer said. "Your body will be restored to operational capacity over time. You will undergo recruit integration training. Upon completion, your commission will be reviewed based on prior service and performance." He blinked. "Age waiver approved," the second officer added. "Long-duration space operations require personnel whose service life exceeds normal human limits." They watched him carefully. "This is voluntary," the first officer said. "If you accept, you will receive treatment. You will serve. You will not return to civilian status until you resign your commission or complete service terms. No patriotic appeal, no emotional lure. Only fact." He thought of the apartment, the silent chair, the unoccupied future. He thought of his son, lost beyond the gates, of his wife, gone while he still breathed. He did not want to die. He simply did not know how to remain. "Do I have time?" he asked. One day, the officer said, you will settle your affairs, secure property, report tomorrow to Naval Medical Station Astor. If you do not appear, the offer is withdrawn. He almost laughed. I have no relatives. The officers did not react. They had already known. He looked at the crowd moving with purpose, lives that still wanted something. He had nothing left to lose. I accept, he said. The officers nodded once. Then welcome back to service, the first officer said. Not warmly, not proudly, just fact. He spent the day closing the life he would not return to. He boxed photographs, archived documents, stored furniture, transferred possessions into long-term storage. Not because he expected to come back, but because waste offended him. He kept only what could be carried in one small bag, disposable clothes, basic necessities. Nothing sentimental. The apartment door sealed behind him with a soft, mechanical sigh. He did not look back. Naval Medical Station Astor was clean, quiet, efficient. A doctor met him at intake. No welcome, no curiosity, only confirmation. Chronological age 75. Prior naval service verified. No dependents. No external obligations. Psychological screening adequate. Adequate. Not eager, not hopeful. Just empty enough. Proceed, the doctor said. He changed into a thin medical garment. His belongings were placed into a locker. His identification was recorded and filed away. He lay on the medical bed. Light above. Instruments positioning with quiet precision. The doctor stood beside him. This treatment initiates structural age healing at the cellular level, the doctor said. Recovery occurs over months. Physical training accelerates results. He stared at the ceiling. Side effects? Temporary disorientation, fatigue, emotional fluctuation. You will be monitored. No reassurance, no warning. Only procedure. A mask settled over his face. Cool gas, a faint scent of metal and rain. Count backward, the doctor said. Darkness arrived before he began. He woke to white. Soft ceiling panels, filtered air, the scent of antiseptic. His body responded slowly, not weak, not strong, unfamiliar, as though it had been left behind and returned. A voice nearby. Vitals stable, neural activity elevated. A pause. Then quietly, almost to himself. Dose too strong. Make a note. Group 1 will remain at this dosage until we reach sample size 50, then adjust for Group 2. Not concern, not alarm. Data. He turned his head. The doctor stood with a tablet, eyes following scrolling metrics. The doctor noticed him. You are awake, he said. Stabilization proceeding. You will remain here several days, then transfer to recruit integration training on Luna Station. Uniforms, schedules, orders. The doctor turned to leave. As the door slid shut, memory surfaced unbidden. Steel decks beneath boots. Harness straps biting into shoulders. Salt air in lungs. Laughter in cramped compartments. Purpose. The bad memories had worn away with time. Only direction remained. He closed his eyes. Not hope, not joy, but movement, intake. He woke before the lights. Not startled, not afraid, simply awake. The room was quiet. Other recruits breathed around him in the dimness. Some snored, some murmured in dreams. None of them sounded old. None of them sounded young either, just alive. He sat up. His body felt unfamiliar again. Not fragile, not strong, something between. But when he rolled his shoulders, the joints moved without protest. When he stood, there was no tremor in his legs, no stiffness in his back. The weight of years was still there, but it no longer owned him. He walked to the reflection panel near the sanitation station. His face looked like himself, older, lined, but the skin sat better. The sagging was less, the eyes clearer, not young, just viable. He touched his cheek once, then stepped away. No vanity, only data. Morning intake came fast. A corridor, a desk, a stack of folded uniforms, boots, undershirts, training fatigues, a data pad with banking information and service codes. A young petty officer stood behind the counter, bored. "Name," she said. He handed over his temporary medical ident tag. She scanned it, hesitated, looked up, looked at him again, then resumed her routine. "Recruit, you will receive uniforms, footwear, hygiene kit, and bedding. Civilian possessions remain in storage. Pay account is established. All correspondence through assigned channels only. Questions?" He shook his head. She handed him the stack. "Changing bay. 10 minutes. Then General Assembly." He nodded once and walked away. The changing bay smelled of detergent and nervous sweat. Recruits pulled on uniforms, checked sizes, adjusted belts, laced boots. Quiet murmurs filled the space. He dressed without hesitation, folding, aligning, setting creases where fabric wanted to be taught obedience. Muscle memory, old habit, old discipline. A young recruit watched him. "You served before?" the young one asked. He paused, looked at the uniform collar, adjusted it 1 millimeter, then gave a low sound. Rough, short, not quite a word. The recruit blinked, unsure if he had been dismissed or answered. Another recruit snorted. "Guess that's a yes." The name started there, not spoken yet, but forming. General Assembly. Hundreds of recruits in rows. Instructors moving like predators through the lanes. Voices snapping commands. Boots striking floor. He stood straight, hands at sides, eyes forward. A drill instructor stopped in front of him, a tall woman with a razor haircut and sharp eyes. "Recruit, speak when addressed." He nodded. She leaned in slightly. "Your response to any order will be yes, drill instructor, or no, drill instructor. Do you understand?" He opened his mouth. The words were there. He knew them. He had lived them once. But the grief sat in his chest like a stone. The treatment had stripped numbness away. Everything now had sharp edges. His voice came out as a short growl, low, rough. Not the right words. The drill instructor stepped back half a pace, then smiled. "Well then, we have ourselves a gruff one." She turned to the roster. "Recruit Gruff, congratulations. You have a new name." A few recruits snickered. He did not react. He did not care. A name was a label. It changed nothing. But later, when the recruits whispered among themselves, they used it softly. Not mockery, just shorthand. Familiar. Gruff. He was assigned to 6th Division, Foxtrot Platoon. The hallway sign read, 6th Division, Foxtrot Platoon. Someone had scratched beneath it, F'd up platoon. He read it once, then stepped inside. Their drill instructor was late. When he finally arrived, he looked tired and irritated. He glanced over the platoon like one inspects unwanted cargo. "Listen up," the instructor said. "You are my failure batch. I am not wasting my life fixing what should not have passed intake. You fail, you go home. Simple. Try not to embarrass the division too much." Then he left. Just like that. The recruits stood in silence. No leadership, no guidance, no structure. They looked at one another. Lost. Then one of them looked at Gruff. Old. Calm. Standing like a post driven into bedrock. "What now?" the recruit asked. Gruff did not answer. He walked to his bunk, set his kit down, opened it, began assembling his locker with perfect alignment, folding, stacking, positioning each item with exact spacing, the sound of fabric, metal clicks, boots placed heel to toe. The recruits watched. Slowly they began copying. From that day forward, he demonstrated. He cleaned gear in front of them, methodically, wordlessly, every motion precise. He showed them how to fit equipment that did not quite fit, how to tighten straps, how to roll fabric, how to store gear so it stayed clean, how to carry weight so it hurt less. When he focused on the task, his voice returned. Not loud, not emotional, but clear. "This buckle bears load. If it slips, you fall. Moisture ruins fabric. Dry it here. Clean boots reflect discipline. Short sentences, practical, understandable." The recruits listened. They hid how shocked they were that he could speak normally when focused. They never asked him questions directly, because when they did, he froze. The grief surfaced. The words jammed. Only the low growl came. So they adapted. They paid attention. They studied. They repeated instructions among themselves. They answered questions for him when instructors asked. "Recruit Gruff, explain standard stowage protocol," an instructor barked once. Gruff looked at the platoon. One recruit stepped forward and recited the regulation perfectly. Gruff nodded once. Correct. The platoon learned faster, cleaner, sharper, not because of the drill instructor, because of the old man who did not speak unless doing. Physical training became ritual. He ran first. They followed. He pushed harder than his body should allow. Muscles burning, lungs tearing, sweat pouring. Pain came. Injury did not. Each day his body responded more, strength returning, reflexes sharpening, balance correcting, not youth, but prime adulthood rebuilding itself around old memory. The recruits watched in disbelief. He did not break. He did not slow. They matched him, because they refused to be left behind by someone who should not have been able to outpace them. Bond formed there. Not friendship, respect earned in shared suffering. By firefighting week, Foxtrot Platoon was different. Their uniforms were sharp, their gear clean, their drills precise, their timing synchronized. Other platoons noticed. The instructors noticed. Their own drill instructor took credit, but everyone knew the truth, and nobody said it aloud. At night, when lights dimmed, Gruff sat on his bunk. The grief never left. It hovered behind everything. But the work muffled it, drowned it, gave it structure. He did not heal. He functioned. For now, that was enough. Assessment. Inspection day arrived without ceremony. Recruits stood in full kit, weapons secured, uniforms flawless, boots mirror-polished, faces tight with anticipation. Foxtrot platoon stood at attention, Gruff at their head. Not appointed, not official, simply where he belonged. Senior officers walked the line. Company commander, evaluation board, medical officer, career assignment representative. They moved down the ranks, asking questions, checking posture, testing responses. They reached Foxtrot. The company commander raised an eyebrow at the sight. "Interesting," he said quietly. He stopped in front of Gruff. "Recruit, your name?" Gruff's voice came out as a low growl. The wrong response. A recruit beside him immediately spoke. "Recruit Gruff, recruit platoon leader, Foxtrot." The company commander looked from the speaking recruit to Gruff. "Is that correct?" he asked. Gruff nodded once. "Yes." The company commander turned to the drill instructor assigned to Foxtrot. "This platoon's performance scores are highest in 6th Division," he said. "Your attendance record indicates minimal direct instruction. Explain." The drill instructor shifted uncomfortably. "They motivated themselves, sir." The company commander looked back at Gruff. "I see." Physical evaluation followed. Obstacle courses, zero-gravity maneuvering, damage control drills, basic combat simulations. Foxtrot platoon ranked first, not by small margins, by embarrassing margins. Other platoons watched, some resented, some admired. Foxtrot simply worked. At final assembly, the recruits stood in formation. The company commander addressed them. "Integration training complete. Assignments will be issued." He paused. "Recruit Gruff. Step forward." Gruff did. The assembled officers watched him closely. Not as a recruit, as a question. The medical officer spoke quietly to the commander. "Age restoration responding exceptionally. Musculature restored to adult baseline. Neuromotor function above average. Healing factor confirmed. No instability observed." The commander nodded once, then spoke aloud. A murmur passed through the recruits. Gruff did not react. He had not come to win. He had come because there was nowhere else to go. After dismissal, Foxtrot gathered around him, not crowding, just forming a circle, natural, tribal. One recruit cleared his throat. "They gonna give you a real name back now?" Gruff gave a low growl. The recruit smiled. "Didn't think so." Another recruit spoke. "Doesn't matter. Gruff fits." Gruff looked at them, then nodded once. Acceptance. That night, alone in the barracks, he removed his uniform and examined his body in the reflection panel. Not young, not old. Ageless. Muscle where memory demanded. Strength where will required. Scars still present. Proof of lived life. He touched his chest once. Heartbeat steady. His wife was gone. His son was gone. But he remained. And for the first time since the hospital room, He did not feel betrayed by that fact. The recruit training commanding officer sat with the senior drill instructors, reviewing assignments. An ensign reading names and assignments. One name stood out: Gruff. The ensign paused. No assignment yet. The commanding officer looked at the drill instructors. First Lieutenant, Expeditionary. The drill instructors looked startled. One said, "He's barely functional. He can barely speak." Functional? He took a group of undesignated recruits, abandoned by your instructor, and taught them to excel. Send them all to Expeditionary Group for the final recruit problem. This is unusual, the same instructor complained. He's Lazarus Project. We have other directives. Move him through. The commanding officer gave his final word. The ensign continues naming names and reporting assignments. Final problem. The order board updated at dawn. Platoons gathered beneath it, searching for their assignments. Engineering divisions received reactor failures. Flight divisions received navigation hazards. Medical divisions received mass casualty simulations. Foxtrot platoon stared at their line. Final problem. Combat containment, subterranean insectoid nest, Luna South Ridge. Silence fell over them. Everyone in the platoon knew what that meant. Infantry, expeditionary, high attrition. Several recruits swallowed hard. One muttered a curse. Another stared at his hands as if they no longer belonged to him. They had joined expecting shipboard duty. Technical billets, safe corridors, predictable risks. Not this, not nests. Gruff read the assignment once, then again. His body responded before thought. Posture tightened, breath steadied, eyes sharpened. This was familiar ground. He turned to the platoon. "Gear," he said. His voice was clear. Not the growl, not strained. Command. They assembled in the armory. Old recruit armor, ill-fitting, generic, training issue only. Old model rifles, poorly maintained. Optical sights misaligned. The recruits fumbled with equipment they did not trust. Gruff stepped forward. He took a rifle, disassembled it, cleaned it, reassembled it, adjusted the sight. "Barrel alignment," he said. "Miss here, someone dies there." He fitted armor harnesses, rerouted straps, reinforced buckles. "Armor stays on when you fall." Soon the platoon copied him, helping each other, fixing flaws, building confidence through action. Fear redirected into discipline. A recruit hesitated beside him. "Recruit Gruff, have you done this before?" Gruff held up the rifle. "These were new models," he said, "when I used them." Deadpan. No boast. Just fact. Shock rippled through them. Trust followed. They marched to deployment. Instructors watched from the ridge. One squinted. They looked like a veteran unit. Another sneered. Foxtrot's drill instructor barely touched them. A third tapped the command pad. Containment mission overwritten. Extermination directive uploaded. Backup removed. "Let's see how far they get," he muttered, the same senior drill instructor who complained during assignments. The nest opening steamed in the cold lunar dawn. Foxtrot formed at the breach, recruits breathing loud in helmets. Gruff stepped forward, focused, his debilitating grief pushed down under the impending threat of combat. "Spacing. Corners first. Those last. Cover rear. Speak up and name targets. It will get loud, so keep your noise down and pay attention. Go in pairs, pay attention. Your partner is your life. Keep your breathing even, controlled. Breath even when you think you don't need to. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. They moved. Inside. Darkness, screeching, charging chitin. The first creature fell to Gruff's shot. It was the size of a medium dog, silvered chitin, looking like a cross between a spider and an ant. Huge mandibles standing out, large enough to kill given an opportunity. Then the platoon followed. Angles covered, fire controlled, positions rotated, ammunition shared. Training became instinct. Instinct became survival. They cleared tunnels, held kill lines, broke the swarm. Minutes stretched into eternity. Then silence. Smoke. Heat. Breathing. No casualties. Not one. Outside, instructors stared. That should have failed, one said. The senior drill instructor said nothing, only watched Gruff exit the tunnel, armor scorched, rifle steady, recruits following like a unit born in war. Hours later, Foxtrot stood in formation. Exhausted, dirty, alive. The company commander walked the line. His gaze stopped on Gruff. Step forward. Gruff did. The commander held out a tablet. Recruit Gruff. Prior service confirmed. Performance evaluated. Leadership observed. Combat competence verified. A pause. By authority of Terran Republic Naval Command, you are hereby assigned Expeditionary Infantry Track. A murmur ran through the platoon. Gruff accepted the tablet. Automatic motion. More lines appeared. Foxtrot Platoon. Expeditionary designation approved. Orders pending ship assignment. The recruits stared. Fear. Pride. Awe. Gruff simply nodded once. Not happy. Not grieving. Purpose. Captain Ana Rivera entered the Commodore's office. The aide at the side desk came to attention. Captain Rivera, Commanding Officer, TRS, Frigate Trident, to see Commodore Tran. He's expecting you, the aide said, indicating the inner door. Ana straightened her uniform. Not vanity, reassurance. Then stepped inside. Commodore Hal Tran sat behind his desk. He did not rise, did not return the salute. Their ranks were close. His was higher. Commodore, she began. Ana, he interrupted. The use of her first name shifted the room. Less protocol, more candor. Ana paused, then lifted her tablet. Hal, what is this? She held the display forward. I requested a new expeditionary detachment, not a newly minted lieutenant, one without expeditionary certification. Tran leaned back slightly. Expeditionary units are detachments assigned to your ship, not crew. Their chain decides their leadership, not you. Ana exhaled through her nose. That detachment attached to my ship is unstable. Suspected fragging. Repeated violations. I cannot allow them unrestricted liberty. They are already confined to their pod. Tran's eyes remained calm. What happens in their pod is their business. You may restrict them as you see fit. You are the captain. Ana leaned forward slightly. Hal, they are dangerous. Tran studied her for a moment, then changed direction. Do you know why we are a navy? he asked. And not some space force invented by politicians. Anna blinked at the shift. Slowly, she shook her head. We are a navy because tradition solved problems long before we left the ocean, Terran said. Long deployments, isolation, confined crews, mental collapse, discipline erosion. The Navy already knew how to survive that. So when we went to space and ships became lived in, we kept the structure that worked. He tapped his desk once. Tradition survives because it is functional. Anna's jaw tightened slightly. And this lieutenant? Expeditionary doctrine is broken, Terran said. High attrition, violence, friction with crew. No one knows how to fix it. Your new lieutenant brings something different. Let him work. If he fails, you lose nothing you didn't already have. Anna considered this. I will brief his sergeant. Proceed, Captain, Terran said, returning to rank, closing the discussion. Anna saluted, turned, left. When the lieutenant left the recruit moon, he left the name behind. Nothing of recruit training followed him except the result. He declined transit leave. There was nowhere to go. He boarded a military shuttle and transferred directly to Station Arclight, where the Trident lay docked along the great berthing spars. He walked the corridor inside the docking arm. Fleet vessels stretched away in silent steel procession. He stopped at the opening to the Trident. The quarterdeck. A young officer stood watch at the podium. Officer of the deck. Protocol demanded formal request for permission to come aboard. The lieutenant did not speak. He handed over his tablet and gave a low growl. The OOD froze for half a second, then waved him through. Captain Rivera is expecting you, sir. Another growl. Protocol forgotten. Problem passed upward. Not their concern. He knocked once at the captain's stateroom. Enter. He stepped inside and came to attention. At ease, Captain Rivera said. She did not waste time. Are you familiar with jump-capable ships? She asked, not waiting for response. We don't use gates. We carry our own drive. That comes with mass limits, power limits, shield limits. She gestured toward the bulkhead, the ship beyond. We are smaller than gate fleets, lighter, faster, less armored, less forgiving. The only things keeping this ship alive are stealth, speed, and your people. These ships are the single most expensive vessels the fleet has, their technology a prize, security paramount. She looked at him directly. 111 crew, 20 expeditionary soldiers. You exist to protect them when problems reach inside the hull. Her voice hardened slightly. Your detachment is undisciplined, violent, unreliable. Bring them back into order. That is all I require. She paused. First real moment for questions. The lieutenant answered with a low growl. Rivera exhaled once through her nose. Sergeant Wolf is expecting you. He descended into the ship's lower decks, past engineering hum, past crew quarters, past clean corridors, until he reached the internal airlock leading into the expeditionary pod. The contrast was immediate. Mess, noise, equipment scattered, soldiers lounging, lifting weights, cleaning weapons, arguing, laughing, a hard-edged tribe. One soldier noticed him. Attention on deck! The platoon rose slowly, sloppy, confident, assessing. He growled. Not accidental this time, intentional. He walked the line, studied each face, stopped at one uniform bearing order beneath the chaos. Sergeant Wolf. He nodded toward the private office beside the barracks and handed over a tablet containing written directives. They entered. The door sealed. An hour later, Wolf emerged. Physical training, 0600. Correct uniform. No excuses. Murmurs rippled through the platoon. Recruit training again? Someone muttered. Wolf ignored them. Inside his stateroom, the lieutenant unpacked silently, then left. Returned minutes later carrying cleaning supplies. He spent the remaining hours rearranging the room, cleaning, organizing, establishing territory. Grief stayed with him, but unfamiliar purpose pressed alongside it. 0600, an alarm sounded. Wolf's voice cut through the pod. "You're late! Move!" The lieutenant stood waiting in the exercise space, already positioned, already ready. The platoon stumbled in, wearing undershirts, half awake, unprepared. Wolf started cadence. They struggled to match it. The lieutenant drove the sequence forward. Push, hold, collapse, rise, again. He did not shout. He simply continued. The platoon broke, then rebuilt, then broke again. Hours passed. Condensation ran down bulkheads. Temperature climbed. Life support lagged. At last, the cycle ended. The lieutenant stood effortlessly. Wolf rose beside him, slower but steady. They surveyed the platoon sprawled across the deck, gasping, unable to move. The lieutenant's mind was clear. Grief quiet, but never gone. "This is how it is now," he said, calm, even, normal voice. "Follow instruction. Become what you were meant to be." Only Wolf could answer. "Yes, sir, Lieutenant." He paused, noticing condensation dripping from overhead. "Lieutenant Rain." The platoon laughed weakly. Not mockery. Acceptance. Ghosts. This was their life now. No liberty, no promenades, no station noise. Only the expeditionary pod. Everything happened inside it. Exercise, maintenance, instruction, sleep. A closed world of steel and breath. Lieutenant Rain carried his armor into the center of the common space, dropped it onto the deck, sat before it, disassembled every plate, every actuator, every powered joint. Then the rifle, then the environmental seals, then the sensor harness. This was not recruit armor. This was expeditionary gear, powered augmentation, limited sensor overlay, battlefield environmental control. Factory-issued, rushed, uncomfortable, built for average bodies. They were not average bodies. Slow, exact, deliberate. The platoon gathered without being told. He rebuilt, adjusted actuator timing, balanced load distribution, reseated neural contact pads, smoothed friction points, reinforced stress channels, corrected factory shortcuts. While his hands worked, his voice returned. Torque misaligned here. Sensor ghosting here. Seal fails here. This locks, you die. Short statements. One-way instruction. No questions. They had learned not to ask. Instead, they listened, memorized, repeated to each other, practiced. When questions were necessary, Sergeant Wolf asked them. They answered him. Wolf passed the response to Rain. Rain nodded once. Correct. Or not. They became self-teaching. Their armor changed with them. What had once been stiff, chafing, awkward-powered shells became tuned extensions of their bodies, servos responding cleanly, weight vanishing into balanced harnesses, sensor feeds aligned to natural sight. By the end of the second week, they no longer removed it except to sleep. It was no longer equipment. It was their uniform, comfortable, natural. A second skin. By the end of the first week, the unused mechanical shop had been reopened, power restored, tools organized, fabrication benches active. The ship's engineering crews stopped sending maintenance teams. The expeditionary platoon handled their own space. It became territory. Something changed quietly. At first they lowered their voices around Rain because his strained speech made loud environments difficult. So they adapted. Whispers, waiting, listening before speaking. But lowered voices sharpened attention. They heard more, noticed more, interrupted less. Thought before responding. Mistakes decreased. Reflexes sharpened, senses refined. Kindness became discipline. Discipline became competence. Competence became confidence. They were no longer merely dangerous. They were controlled. By the third week, the Trident left berth. That morning, Sergeant Wolf assembled them. You will now eat in the crew mess rotations. You will clear before ship staff arrive. Understood. Quiet unity. Aye, aye, Sergeant. They moved out together. Gone were the loud, crude soldiers whispered about on station. These moved silently, spoke softly. Armor immaculate. Weapons carried with reverence. Eyes always aware. Crew stepped aside without being asked. Not from fear, from instinct. It did not go unnoticed. After morning meal, the executive officer arrived at the pod entrance with 2 crew members in tow. He had not announced himself. Inside the pod, someone called calmly, "Attention on deck!" The XO stepped through the hatch. Every soldier already stood at attention, motionless, ready. He had not heard movement, not a footstep, not a servo whine. The 2 crew with him hesitated, then quietly stepped backward, away from the hatch, leaving the XO standing alone. Sergeant Wolf stepped forward. XO, what can I do for you? The XO hesitated. Then, inspection. Wolf gestured. Proceed. The XO walked slowly through the pod. Spotless deck, organized racks, weapons stored precisely, armor aligned, tool benches immaculate, nothing to criticize. His jaw tightened. "Live weapons," he said sharply. "Against shipboard regulations." Wolf raised an eyebrow. "Sir," he said with polite sarcasm, "these are expeditionary weapons. They are how we greet the unfriendly." The XO glanced toward the hatch. The 2 crew remained several steps back, watching, not approaching. He turned back. "Confiscate them," he ordered. No one moved. Then a shape stepped from a side compartment. Lieutenant Rain. He carried his rifle. He walked directly to the XO, held the rifle out. Level, offered. "Here," he growled. "Take mine." No aggression, no disrespect. Just fact. The XO did not take it. He stared into Rain's eyes, saw nothing defiant, nothing mocking, just certainty. The XO cleared his throat. That won't be necessary. He turned and left the pod without another word. Behind him, the two crew followed quickly. As he departed, the XO glanced back. The pod was perfect, and the soldiers inside it were nothing like the rumor he had expected. That night, a new name spread through the ship. Not spoken to the soldiers, spoken among crew. Ghost Platoon. Because they moved quietly, worked endlessly, appeared where needed, vanished when not, and because no one was entirely certain what haunted the man who led them. Lieutenant Rain stood alone in the pod after lights dimmed. Armor settled around him like a familiar coat. Comfortable, natural. His body felt strong now. Full adult strength returned. Not youthful, not aged. Prime. His grief remained, but quieter. For the first time since the hospital room, he whispered a name into empty air. Not a prayer, not a plea. Just acknowledgement. Then he turned off the light. The executive officer walked fast, not running, but not slow. The corridor felt narrower than usual, the overhead lights too bright, the sound of his own boots too loud. He reached the lift, entered alone, let the doors close. Only then did he exhale. Captain Ana Rivera's stateroom was quiet when he arrived. He rang, entered. She sat at her desk reviewing ship readiness reports. She did not rise, did not invite him to sit. "Captain," the XO said, "I conducted a pod inspection of the expeditionary platoon." Rivera looked up. "And?" "They are carrying live weapons inside the ship, in violation of standard safety protocol." Rivera leaned back slightly. "Yes." The XO blinked. "Yes, Captain." "Yes, I approved it." The XO's jaw flexed. "With respect, Captain, that is highly irregular. If one of them discharges a weapon inside the hull—" "They will not," Rivera said calmly. The XO hesitated, then continued. "And the condition of the platoon, their behavior, their silence, their organization. Who authorized them to operate independently of ship maintenance and standard rotation?" Rivera studied him for a long moment. "First, they are expeditionary forces under their own command. Lieutenant Rain did not need to request permission," she said. "And within his authority, he simply produced results. Engineering complaints dropped to 0. Disciplinary incidents dropped to 0. You can lodge a complaint with Expeditionary Command, but I think it will sound much like what I am saying. That does not negate regulation." "No," Rivera said. "It demonstrates why regulation exists, to produce results." The XO's voice hardened. "Captain, this platoon was sent to us because they were suspected of fragging their prior officer. Because no one wanted them. Because they were dangerous." Rivera's expression did not change. "Yes. And now we have placed them under this lieutenant making up procedures as he pleases. No expeditionary seasoning. No platoon command history. No evaluation cycle." Rivera folded her hands. Lieutenant Rain was naval special warfare before most of this ship's crew were born. He was an engineer before you graduated officer school, and he is the only officer who has made that platoon functional without force or punishment. That is not the point. the XO said sharply. Rivera's eyes cooled a fraction. Then make your point. The XO hesitated. He had no point that did not sound like fear. Rivera let the silence hang long enough to settle it. Commander, she said quietly, using his rank for the first time. Expeditionary units are not like line sailors. They require a leader who understands controlled danger. Lieutenant Rain does. You do not. The XO flushed slightly. Rivera continued. If I removed him, the platoon would return to what it was. If I placed a conventional officer there, I would get either a mutiny or a massacre the first time they deploy. I prefer neither. The XO swallowed. What if they turn on him? Rivera smiled once, small, without warmth. Then they will discover he is not the weakest thing in that room. The XO had no response. Rivera dismissed him with a nod. You will log your inspection. You will note my authorization. And you will not interfere with expeditionary internal operations unless ordered. Understood? Understood, Captain. He left. Rivera returned to her report. For a moment, she paused. Then she wrote a single line into her personal log. Lieutenant Rain. Observe closely. Potentially pivotal. The name Ghost Platoon spread that evening. Rivera did not stop it. Trident entered the systems outside of Kestrel's gravity influence, far from the gates, invisible to the traffic that flows between gates. The system was empty of traffic, and an alarm sounded through system beacons. Alert, colony under attack. Nearest ships, please send help. The message was days old. Captain Rivera reviewed the available data. Nav, plot a course to Kestrel 3, Kestrel Point Mining Colony. No emissions, stealth protocols? Captain, 22 hours at top speed to Kestrel 3. Captain, scans detect 2 Corvette-class vessels in orbit and 12 on the surface. Unidentified origins, no colonial presence detected. Unidentified life signs only. Come in on their blind side. Let me know when we are in range. Aye, aye! The planet was already dead when Trident arrived. From orbit, it looked peaceful. Cloud bands, oceans, continents. Night lights still glowing, but no transmissions. No traffic control. No civilian beacons. Only silence. Captain Ana Rivera stared at the display. Frontier Colony Kestrel Point, the navigation officer said. Population 32,000. Last report 3 days ago. We have 2 low-orbit contacts. Rivera's jaw tightened. Prepare a firing solution. Use railguns. Keep silent and no visuals. Record all contact details. Rivera intoned. The weapons officer looked up from the Combat Information Center to the left of the shared bridge, Combat and Operational Control Centers. Captain Rivera noticed his concern, and it deserved an answer. They are unidentified in the wrong place, wrong time. If it was one of the known species, they would be squawking all over the place or helping. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize. She gave an unapologetic grin. The weapons officer nodded in agreement. Trident opened fire as soon as the vessel crossed the horizon. 2 short bursts, projectiles sent at incredible speed, and without a sign, the ships simply bloomed into metal fragments and ship parts. Their crews probably didn't know they were dead yet. Contacts destroyed. Send Rain and his platoon, Rivera replied. Put Trident in geostationary orbit over the colony. Trident isn't good in the atmosphere. We'll give support from orbit. Everyone aboard knew the truth. Trident's jump drive vanes were built for folding space. not for wind shear. Rivera exhaled. Deploy the pod. Lieutenant Rain stood at the head of his platoon inside the expeditionary pod. Wolf ordered, "Secure the pod. Prepare for contact." Armor sealed. Weapons checked. Visors down. Sergeant Wolf stepped to his side. "Ready, Lieutenant?" Rain nodded once. "Deploy." The pod separated from Trident and fell toward the planet like a thrown spear. On Trident's hangar deck, a shuttle lifted away. Inside stood the executive officer with 2 ship crew. He reviewed orbital scans and pod telemetry. His voice was steady, efficient, precise. On the bridge, Rivera watched the data scroll. "I do not like relying on the XO for ground coordination," she said quietly. "But he is performing well," the navigation officer replied. Rivera did not answer. She kept watching. The pod struck the ground hard, digging into blackened soil. Rain and the platoon emerged into a city of ash. Collapsed buildings, twisted metal, glass melted into black puddles. No bodies, no survivors, only destruction. Rain raised his hand. 3 teams separated and moved into the ruins. 2 full squads, and Rain and Wolf covering between. Wolf stayed at his side. Every soldier paired, responsible for their partner. They moved without tiring, searched with eyes and equipment. Silent. The first contact came at dusk. Creatures, angular, jointed wrong. Heat leaking from their armor. Weapons that burned rather than fired. They attacked without hesitation. No negotiation, no retreat. House to house, street to street, block by block. When Rain marked a ship, fire came from orbit. When Wolf marked a concentration, the ground shook. Ghost Platoon didn't invent new ways to fight. What made them different is they didn't hesitate. They fired with accuracy. They knew each piece of equipment to the last screw or belt. They spotted, identified, and shot before the creatures could fight back. They prevented the massive things from using their size and power against them. Days passed in motion and fire, armor never removed, sleep taken in minutes, meals eaten standing. No one complained, no one questioned. They were alive. They were needed. By the 5th day, the city was silent again. No movement, no heat signatures, no ships. Rain stood in the center of the ruins. Wolf beside him. "No casualties," Wolf said. Rain nodded. "They gave no quarter," Wolf added. "We did not offer much either." Rain did not answer. Orders came from orbit. "Recovered a pod," the XO said. "Mission complete." Rain raised his hand to signal withdrawal. Then he heard it. A struggle. Close. Inside a half-standing building. Rain moved immediately. Wolf watched their back outside. Inside, dust drifted through broken light. One of Rain's soldiers stood over a woman. Black hair, pale skin. Robes torn and dirty. The soldier's breathing was ragged. Eyes gone too far into adrenaline. His hand was on her. Rain saw what was about to happen. "Stand down," Rain said. The soldier turned. He did not let go of her. He took one step toward Rain. Rain fired without hesitation. The soldier dropped. No words. No hesitation. Silence returned. Wolf! Survivor! Wolf entered at a run, saw the body, saw the woman, saw Rain. The fallen soldier's hand still gripped torn fabric. Wolf understood. Rain pointed at the body. "Take his gear! Leave him!" Wolf stared at Rain for a long moment. This was a pivotal moment he had been ready for, but the choice would either save or break the future. Then Wolf spoke quietly to himself. "All in." He gestured. Soldiers came and stripped the fallen man's equipment. They did not look at his face. Rain turned to the woman. Words came with effort. "Who?" She swallowed. "Maya." She saw them turn to leave. "Don't leave me." Rain felt grief rise. Old grief. New grief. Layered. He leaned toward Wolf. "All in," he whispered. He nodded toward her. Wolf understood. They reached the pod. The shuttle waited. The XO stood near the ramp, signaling urgency. He saw the extra gear first. Then he saw the woman. Goodwill ended instantly. Wolf reported. 1 casualty. 1 survivor. The XO stared. How? The fighting stopped hours ago. No one answered. No one looked at him. He pointed at Maya. "We can't take her." Maya stepped forward quickly, slipping past them into the pod. "I'm with them," she said. Rain looked to Wolf. Wolf looked back. Rain forced words through the block. Expeditionary Forces Procedure Regulation 36, subsection 3. Field replacements may be used to restore operational losses. The XO stared at him. "This is not what that regulation was for. Not this way." Wolf stepped forward. "Do you think leaving her is kindness compared to joining us? She made her choice. I think she understands what it means." The XO opened his mouth. A crewman ran forward, comms tablet open. Captain Rivera's voice came through clearly. "XO, Lieutenant Rain's request is approved. Return to ship." Everyone turned toward their duties at once. Everyone except the XO. He stood alone at the pod ramp. Anger, fear, protocol violated, implications too large to grasp. He could not reconcile what had just happened. Inside the pod, Maya sat against the wall. Hands shaking, eyes open. Rain stood nearby. Still, silent. And the path ahead had changed. Sergeant Wolf pointed to Maya. "Get her a bunk, issue some gear, start her training 0600 tomorrow. Secure all gear, return to the ship, secure the pod." Sergeant Wolf's eyes went to the closed stateroom door. From the first day, he understood what Lieutenant Rain was doing. Loyal to his person and success, knowing almost instinctively what Rain was doing. Until now. He had no idea what was coming next, except he had made his choice and would see it through all in. If he trusted anyone in this universe with that phrase, it was Lieutenant Rain. In the morning, 0600, the pod docked back with the Trident, flashing light on the comms panel showing ship's crew trying to contact them. No one moving to do so until Lieutenant Rain came out and cleared the unfinished business. 0601. Late for Lieutenant Rain. He came out, looking as strained as they had ever seen, and dropped a tablet on Sergeant Wolf's lap and nodded. Sergeant Wolf reading and looking surprised at Lieutenant Rain, then back to reading. The onlooking soldiers quietly rustling in attention at the strange behavior from Lieutenant Rain and Sergeant Wolf. Lieutenant Rain gave Sergeant Wolf a last nod, and the sergeant then addressed the platoon. He took a breath, knowing the strain Lieutenant Rain would be under to have written this tablet showing, with the words, "The Companions," at the top. To address the failure of Private Voss, Wolf stated the addition, "He will not be spoken of again. His failure is our failure. We must put ourselves in a new place so it never happens again. Everyone will pair up, pick someone you like, someone you love, because they will be your conscience, your partner, your survival. When they fail, you fail, and vice versa. They will be strength to your weakness, your legs when yours fail, eyes when yours dims, your voice when yours fails." This last one echoed slightly, followed by a long pause. "From now on, they go everywhere with you and you with them. Take a week to sort it out. Make deep choices, honest choices. This will be done with recognition. We will register all choices, so there are not doubts." As the last word came out, Maya stood, took her newly issued gear, and walked into Lieutenant Rain's stateroom, closing the door behind her. Lieutenant Rain looked at Sergeant Wolf, then his door for a very long time. Uncertainty written in his pain-ridden face, Lieutenant Rain answered the meeting request without delay. Sergeant Wolf walked beside him. They entered the captain's briefing room. Captain Rivera stood at the head of the table. The executive officer was already there. He did not look pleased. His eyes went immediately to Wolf. "This meeting is for officers," the XO said. "The sergeant will wait outside." "No," she said. Captain Rivera did not look at Wolf. She looked at the XO. The XO blinked. He had been cut off before finishing his sentence. Wolf remained where he was. Rain said nothing. The XO straightened his uniform. "Captain, I must formally lodge complaints regarding the expeditionary detachment." Rivera gestured once. "Proceed." The XO activated his tablet. "First, Lieutenant Rain has invented protocol without authorization. Second, he has accepted a civilian survivor of unknown origin into a military unit. Her species classification is unverified. Third, there were suspicious combat fatalities occurring after hostilities had ceased. Fourth, unauthorized fraternization. Fifth, continued violation of shipboard safety regulations regarding live weapons. Sixth," Rivera raised a hand. "Expeditionary matters," she said. "File your complaints with Expeditionary Group Command." The XO's voice sharpened. "This requires action now." Rivera's patience thinned visibly. "You may conduct inspections. You may submit complaints. The rest is under expeditionary authority." The XO leaned forward slightly. "With respect, Captain, if this detachment destabilizes..." Rivera's voice cut through him. "I warned you once, Commander. You step over that line, and I will drop you at the next station." Silence landed in the room. The XO flushed, embarrassed, checked in front of witnesses. He gathered his tablet. "This conversation will be recorded," he said. "It already is," Rivera replied. The XO left quickly. The door closed. Rivera exhaled once, then looked at Rain and Wolf. Rain stepped forward and placed a tablet on the table. Wolf spoke for him. Lieutenant Rain requests your review of the Companion's Doctrine. Rivera picked up the tablet. Read. Time passed. No one spoke. When she finished, she set the tablet down. I will allow this, she said. On my ship. She paused. The next words came with effort. I trust that this is the right way to shape them. Your results indicate it. Wolf inclined his head. One more matter, he said. The survivor, Maya, she will see ship's personnel services. If at any point she indicates this is not her will, she will be classed refugee and returned to the nearest Terran station. Rivera nodded. Agreed. They were dismissed. The XO conducted inspections. He interviewed soldiers. He interviewed Maya. He attempted to split paired soldiers. They refused. They answered questions for one another. He tried another angle. He implied Lieutenant Rain had authorized assault against the women in the platoon. As he implied this during an interview, a female soldier snapped forward. Her partner caught her before she struck him. Assault, you don't understand, she said, voice shaking. He put us before himself. Always. Us first. She spat the next words. He's not forcing us to do anything. He's not making us men with tits. He's teaching us to fight as we are, belong, and giving us respect for it. They walked out of the interview room together. The XO recorded nothing. In a later meeting, he stood before Rivera again. My interviews haven't proved misconduct yet, he said. But I will conduct another round. They will slip eventually, especially the girl. Maya. She refuses to change her story, but she will break. Rivera looked at him evenly. I warned you, XO. He had no reply. 3 days later, Trident docked at Solace Station. No ceremony, no quarterdeck call, no officer of the deck. The XO walked through the hatch. The door closed behind him. The ship undocked. No refueling, no liberty, no delay. The XO stood in the corridor with 2 bags of uniforms and personal gear. Solace Station lights reflected off polished floor. No one came to meet him. Rain had done nothing improper with Maya. No favor, no softness, no rejection. She trained, she ate, she slept, like any soldier. He did not know what to do with her. She still shared his stateroom, bunk and gear neatly stowed in the corner. The change came during morning routine. Rain stood before the mirror, getting ready to shave. Hair too long, beyond regulation. Maya stood and went to him without asking. She took his arm, pulled him gently to a chair, sat on his lap. Steady, certain. Rain flinched in surprise. She took the open razor, old metal, personal, dangerous. She shaved him carefully. Not a single cut or nick. Then she trimmed his hair, sides to skin, stopped just above the ears, top left long, intentional. We will leave it, she said. Let it grow. She handed him the razor, gestured to her own hair. He cut hers the same, hands trembling. Maya still, trusting, unmoving, sides clean, skin, top long. He stopped when his hands began to shake too much. She braided the long hair into a single tail down her back. The look was striking. Pale skin, black braid, shaved sides, wild, intimidating. Still sitting on his lap, she placed her forehead to his. Soft voice. When it grows long enough, we will do the same for you. Pause. This is our mark. You're the only one that can understand. You are mine now. She left him there. Rain did not move, head in his hands, tears running down his fingers. Outside the door, Maya met Sergeant Wolf's eyes. She shook her head. No, not now. Wolf nodded. He turned to the platoon. Training. Now. No one commented at the lieutenant's absence. Sergeant Wolf spoke for Rain when it came to routine and operations, and Maya spoke for him in all other ways. They all accepted it. Maya, the companions, it was different, and it was right. They entered formation to start with PT, many commenting on Maya's hair, all accepting. They moved. It took weeks for Trident return to Arclight Station. As soon as they docked, Captain Rivera left for the command offices and entered. The aide waved her through without word. Rivera stood before Commodore Tran. Hal, have you seen what he's done? The Commodore glanced up. A slight breach of protocol, letting her start with first names. But he had been reading the reports, the numbers, the companion's doctrine. He let it pass. They won't accept this. He's welcome to stay on Trident. The Trident is due for refit, Tran said. Extended dry dock. Rivera's tone was controlled. I want to keep them, the platoon. Tran regarded her. They are expeditionary. Their assignment are not yours to determine. Rivera did not blink. Then when refit ends, ensure they return here. Tran leaned back slightly. Perhaps, he said. When they are ready for deployment, a berth may exist. Rivera accepted the answer. Not satisfied, but not denied. You left your XO at a neutral station, the Commodore stated. Not a question. He was a pompous ass. Tran studied her. You could have just refused command endorsement. Could have, didn't. A small smile touched the corner of his mouth. Anything else? Report says it all. Heavily armed, unidentified encounter. 1 casualty. About that? XO report claims unusual circumstances. That's why he was dropped at Solace, my report stands. The only thing unusual is the remarkably low number of casualties, considering what we encountered. That should speak volumes about what we are turning loose on Expeditionary Group. Tran nodded slowly. They may break hard before remaking them. Sounds like redemption, Rivera quipped. Inside Trident's pod, Ghost Platoon trained. Lieutenant Rain stood among them, now having gained control again. Armor humming softly, hair growing longer, a braid waiting in the future. The work continued.